Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. It's time for another Vintage Generation 1 Transformer review. And we're going to take a look at another Headmaster. This time around, we're looking at the 1987 Autobot computer programmer, Chromedome. Chromedome, like the other large Headmasters, was released in 1987. He would also be available in 1988. He would be discontinued by 1989, and we would not get a replacement for him, although we would get something close in the form of the Action Master character, Mainframe, although Mainframe is listed as a system analyst, not a computer programmer. Chromedome here was not heavily featured in the Transformer cartoon that was released around that time, but of course the cartoon was cut short then, so he only appeared in the three-part Headmaster saga. That was the start of the fourth season of the Transformer cartoon. So we really didn't get a lot of development for the character. The character was more prominently featured in the Japanese series The Headmasters, where he served as the leader of the Cybertron Headmasters. Of course, on another note, since in the American cartoon they made RC become a Headmaster, there was talk for a while that Chromedome here would be retooled so that they could allow for an RC figure to be released in the American line. But that's about as far as it got. It never got any further than talk or even the concept work done before the idea was dropped. And of course, seeing as she was binary bonded to Daniel, Spike's son, that's probably a good thing. The less said about them, the better. At any rate, let's take a look at Chromedome and his articulation, and unfortunately it's rather poor on this toy, as predominantly you can rotate his arms at the shoulder all the way around. The only other joint you get is down here at the ankles, but that's more to transform him and adjust how he stands over anything else. And of course, like all of the Headmaster figures, you do have the built-in meter right in here. And it shows he's got about slightly above average speed and strength, but very high intelligence, which kind of fits well with him being the computer programmer. Alright, let's transform Chromedome. Of course, starting by removing his guns. And of course, as he's a Headmaster, we will need to remove his head. The first thing we're going to start with is down here at his feet. We're just going to fold the feet back, like so. We're going to turn him around to the back and raise this red piece up and connect it where the head would have been. Then we grab the chest and fold the entire unit back down, like so. And then, of course, we rotate the arms back and kind of snap them into place, like so. And there's Chromedome's alternate mode, a Cybertronian car. It's kinda neat looking. It's not the best. I mean, really don't care for the protrusion of the arms, how they stick out like that, but that's better than most of either the Transformers or the GoBots in particular. So it's livable with, but I think it could be better. But of course, to fully deck him out, we need to put the driver in. So we get the head, fold this piece that would be above the face down to cover it. And then, of course, Unfold him here, and here we have Stylor. Stylor's articulation. He can bring his arms up like so. It feels a bit like forcing him to get him to go all the way up. But there you go. A little bit of effort. He can put his arm up all the way. He has a joint at the hip that allows you to bend the hip about 90 degrees, and a joint at the knees that allows them to bend like so. Downward, but they can go fully up. In this case, we'll just leave them pointing straight out. Just open up the windscreen area, and you got a pretty large seat to set him in. If you want to, you can bend the legs down a little further so he sits properly. And then close the lid down. And there we go. And of course, for an attack mode, you've got two holes here near the rear. The guns can just plug in like so. And, well, not much of an improvement, but I do like how tightly close the laser guns are on that, because that's a greater chance that he will hit his target with both shots. It's kind of similar to the spacing out of the laser cannons on a TIE fighter from Star Wars. And in many ways, those are a little bit better than having the guns spread very far apart, as at least in this case, there's a greater chance both shots will hit a single target instead of the guns being like positioned here on the sides of the car, where instead he'd be lucky if at least one would hit it. Now let's adjust the camera here, and how well does he roll on these plastic wheels here on the table? For a toy his size, it's not too bad. Kind of expected a little bit better, but it's not bad. He's rolling pretty good on this on this smooth table. Now we'll take a look at Chromedome's accessories. We will start by taking a look at Stylor, otherwise known as the head of Chromedome. It's done up in a gray and red paint, a scarlet and gray paint scheme. Well, not really scarlet, this is more of a bright red, but it's probably enough to get Ohio State fans jumping for joy. That doesn't take much around here. We got at least some orange detail on Stylor's face, and of course that's also repeated for Chromedome's face on the back side. It's nice to see there's a little bit of color splash on here to bring out some of the details. Of course, it'd be nice here on the face if they had used a different color in there for the eyes instead of just going with the orange, but as we've all learned, added paint schemes means more money, so this is when Hasbro really started to get minimalist on that, but at least there's enough to keep you satisfied. And then we've got two of these red guns. The instructions describe them as dual lasers, which, as you can see from the front, there's only one barrel, so having two of them together, I guess, makes them dual, but calling both of them dual lasers is a bit of a stretch. Especially since I seem to have butterfingers today. I can't hold on to the gun. All in all, it's a fair gun. I mean, I like the scope on the top. That's a nice detail, but since the fact that he carries two of them, I don't really see them being used as sniper rifles to their fullest potential, but seeing as Chromedome is predominantly a computer programmer, he probably doesn't see much action on the field So anything that might help improve his aim is certainly worthwhile. Now, moving right along, let's take a look at Chromedome's instructions. And these were done in the new style for 1987, as they had added the more ellipses, much more than meets the eye up here, and heroic and evil would be dropped from the faction names, and they would just go straight with the faction. But since they had additional pages for stickers and such, they had to stretch out the parts on the front page here. So you see, we got the first content page just shows the toy itself, the stickers, and the decoder, and then the second page we get the driver and the guns. I like how they start here on the first page by putting the guns on the top of the car and then put the driver in. When, if you've got the guns mounted the way Chromedome is designed, you'd have to take the guns off again to put the driver in. Those two, I think, should have been reversed. And of course, how to transform Stylor into the head. And then lastly, how to transform the car into Chromedome. Sorry about the crease here on this page. Kind of what happens when you buy these secondhand. But then again, very few of mine survived into adulthood, so I guess I have no room to criticize. And of course, right here we get to see the sticker placement. And then on the last page, how to rub the rub sign, save your robot points, and of course, read the tech spec thing. I always love the fact that even in these late lines, they're still using Blue Streak's tech spec in the picture, despite the fact that by 1987, when this toy came out, Blue Streak was already off the market. At any rate, moving right along, we'll take a look at his tech spec. It's done up in red to show he's an Autobot, even says he's an Autobot. And I notice here on the picture that the head turns at a slight angle, which is impossible to do with these Headmaster toys, except for the modern ones. So kudos to Takara and Hasbro for coming up with a way to make that happen. It gives his name here as Chromedome. It lists his function as computer programmer. And in these days, especially when this was before we had drones and such, having a computer programmer in your army was somewhat essential. And his motto is, a battle plan is only as good as its programmer. Spent several thousand years crunching numbers at Cybertron's Institute for Higher Programming before a Decepticon attack reduced it to a pile of smoking microchips. Binary bonded to Stylor, an egotistical Nebulon more concerned with personal appearance than warfare. I think we all know somebody like that. In car mode, maximum speed 478 miles per hour. Range 630 miles. Hood-mounted infrared rangefinder automatically targets roof-mounted dual lasers. So, at least he's got something here that helps to target the guns in car mode. It's just unfortunately that since the guns are so tightly packed together, they really can't target too much except whatever's directly in front of him. At any rate, let's put the decoder over and take a look at the bars. It lists his strength as 6, his intelligence is 9, his speed is 6, which kind of fits how they were shown on the toy itself. His endurance is also 6, as is his rank. and his courage. His firepower is 7, and his skill is 9. So only in certain areas does he really excel. But for the most part, Chromedome's pretty average of a warrior. Now we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of Chromedome? Well, that depends more on which version of Chromedome you're talking about. The American version, where we've got some egotistical, style-conscious Nebulon being bonded to a computer programmer, I don't care for that in the slightest. So no matter how much they try to convince me that they tolerate each other, you know deep down neither one of them really cares about what the other one is thinking of. And in fact, the More Than Meets the Eye guides even suggest that Chromedome is a rather lonely transformer and is envious of Stylor's popularity, especially with the ladies. So that feature I really don't care about very much. The Japanese version, where Chromedome is basically just the headpiece and this body is a lifeless transector, that version I can appreciate more, since in that media, as it was shown, these small transformers had to work hard and train to prove themselves worthy of being bonded to the lifeless transector bodies. Once they were able to do that, then they joined up in the battle with the others, and even partook in several of their own missions as well. Chromedome here was the field leader of the headmasters. Basically, he functioned second in command underneath Cerebros, aka Fortress Maximus. So that made him a more interesting and compelling character than how it was done for the American media. As a toy, though, it's okay. It's pretty mediocre. It doesn't really have much to make him stand out that much. The articulation is poor. I'm not going to hide that fact. It is rather poor. It's about on par with the Decepticon planes that had been released at the start of the line. The only really good thing he's got going for him is I think those guns are pretty cool looking. But beyond that, there's really not much to go on with Chromedome. He's just simply there. So unfortunately with that, I gotta put him in the middle tier, folks. I mean, the computer programmer aspect of his function, that is something that's essential, even more so in today's modern armies where computers do assist in the fighting. So long as nobody turns one of them into Skynet, I think we will be okay. But I do believe that in the Japanese media, Chromedome got a little more respect and appreciation than what he did in the rest of the world. So I'm going to leave this one at a middle tier. Just simple as that. And that concludes my review of the Generation 1 Autobot computer programmer Chromedome. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up here on YouTube. Don't forget as well, hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't already joined us, and ring the bell to be notified of all future videos. And also, please share your thoughts about Chromedome in the comments section down below. And while Chromedome and RC reenact their dance scene in the hopes of making it on Dancing with the Stars, this is Sparkster1701 reminding you that I'll catch you all later.